Let's turn now to page 21. We're going to continue with Canto Merrick, Lecha Dodi. We're going to do it kind of family-friendly style. So we'll do the first two verses and choruses, and then we'll transition to the last verse and chorus on page 22.
Lecha lecha dodi, likat gala, pene pene shabat mekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likat gala, pene pene shabat mekabela. La 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 la. Lecha dodi, likat gala, pene pene shabat mekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likat gala. פני פני שבת מקבלה שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד ישמיענו אל המיוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד לשם ולתפארת תהילה לה 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 לך דודי לקראת גלה פני פני שבת מקבלה Lecha lecha dodi, likat gala, pene pene, shabat mekabela, la 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 la. Lecha dodi, likat gala, pene pene, shabat mekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likat gala, pene pene, shabat mekabela. Lekrat shabat, lechu ונלכה פה הברכה, נשמי כלם מסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה, לה 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 לה. לך דודי, לקראת גלה, פני פני שבת מקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת גלה, פני פני שבת מקבלה.
If you're able to, I'm going to invite you to stand at your place and turn to face the entrance to the sanctuary. We greet Shabbat as we would greet a bride at a wedding with the last verse of Lecha Dodi, Bo'i v'Shalom.
Bo'i v'Shalom, ater bala, gam b'simcha u'b'tzola, toch emuneh עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי, לקראת גלה, פני פני שבת מקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת גלה, פני פני שבת מקבלה. לה 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 לה. לך דודי, לקראת גלה, פני פני שבת מקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת גלה, פני פני שבת מקבלה.
We're going to ask you now to turn around, but remain standing if you're able to. We're going to go right to page 28. We continue with Baruch Hu.
La 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 la
be seated. I'd like to direct your attention again to the yellow sheet. A reading that both picks up on themes of our next prayer, Ma'ariv Aravim, but also picks up on themes of this Shabbat is called Twilight People. Let me read it for you. As the sun sinks and the colors of the day turn, we offer a blessing for the twilight. For twilight is neither day nor night, but in between. We are all twilight people. We can never be fully labeled or defined. We are many identities and loves, many genders and none. We are in between roles, at the intersection of histories, in between place and place. We are crisscross paths of memory and destination. Streaks of light and swirled together. We are neither day nor night. We are both neither at all. May the sacred in-between of this evening suspend our certainties, soften our judgments, and widen our vision. May this in-between light illuminate our way to the God who transcends all categories and definitions. May the in-between people who have come to pray be lifted up into this twilight. We cannot always define. We can always say a blessing. Blessed are you, God of all, who brings on the twilight. We'll continue at the bottom half of the middle paragraph, page 28.
Shema Yisrael.
El Chai V'Kayam.
Shema Yisrael.
Leah, let's just do that instead. We'll go right to page 30
Yeah, I didn't hear.
for Shema and V'ahavta.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם מלאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
If you look once again at the yellow sheets, toward the bottom, there is an adaptation of V'ahavta. I'd like to ask you to read it with me, but just remember that once you get down to the bottom of page 1, please flip the page and continue with the reading with me on page 2. So together. Hear, O Israel, just as God is one, so are we. Just as you shall love your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might, so shall you love all people. Teach love, compassion, and understanding to your children when you sit in your home, while you walk on your way, when you retire, and when you arise. Bind these words as a sign upon your arm, so that you may fight against prejudice between your eyes, so that you may not be blind to the suffering of others. and write them on the doorposts of your homes and gates, so that you remind yourself and others that intolerance will not be tolerated within these walls. We'll continue by ourselves with the rest of the Shema. Bottom paragraph, page 30, the top paragraph, page 31. V'hayim shemoah tishmo itzvotai.
Adonai Elohechem Emet.
We pick up now in the middle of page 32, Micha Mocha.
La 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 Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael.
Please turn now to page 33. I'm going to ask you to join me in a second in reading the English translation of the prayer Hashkivenu. Hashkivenu is a prayer for protection, for safety, for shelter. And those words, I think, resonate especially on this evening, dedicated to pride. Certainly, we want to live in a world where everyone is safe, where everyone is protected, where everyone feels that every place they go can be a shelter. It's not the world we live in right now, but certainly one of the messages we want to affirm tonight is that Plainview Jewish Center is a safe place and a shelter for everyone, no matter what their sexual orientation, no matter what their gender, no matter what group they come from. We are all equal. We're all made in God's image. We're all children of God. We're all siblings to each other. Please join me in reading at the top of page 33. Help us, Adonai, to lie down in peace, and awaken us again, our sovereign, to life. Spread over us your shelter of peace. Guide us with your good counsel. Save us because of your mercy. Shield us from enemies and pestilence, from starvation, sword, and sorrow. Remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, O God, who watches over us and delivers us, our gracious and merciful ruler. Guard our coming and our going. Grant us life and peace now and always. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Praised are you, Adonai, who spreads the shelter of peace over us, over God, all God's people Israel, and over Jerusalem. If you're able to, please rise. Please join Cantor Merrick for Vishamru, page 34.
בני ישראל את השבת ישראל, בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורות ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורות ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורות ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורות ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורות ברית עולם.
We'll continue with Chatzi Kaddish at the bottom of the page.
יתגדל ויתקדש שם רבה,
Amen.
בעלמה דיברה חירותה וימליך מלכותה. בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי בכל בית ישראל. בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יש מרבה מבורך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה. שמד הקדושה בריחו להאמין כל ברכתה ושירתה. תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא ויאמרו אמן.
The Amidah for the Shabbat evening service is recited individually. You can begin on page 35A with the traditional opening blessings, page 35B, those same blessings, but including references to the matriarchs. In either case, continue by yourselves through page 38.
שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. 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 כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום. כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם, תשים לעולם.
Please be seated. As we conclude our Amidah, I want to share with you a brief meditation, I Am Unique, which is found on page 2 of the yellow sheets. My God, I thank you for my life, my soul and my body, for my name, for my sexual and affectionate nature, for my way of thinking and talking. Help me realize that in my qualities I am unique in the world, and that no one like me has ever lived, for if there had ever been someone like me, I would not have needed to exist. Help me make perfect my own ways of love and caring, that by becoming perfect in my own way, I can honor your name and help bring about the coming of the Messianic age. Page 48, Kaddish Shalem.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי אבא,
אמן.
בעלמא דיבחיותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב יאמרו אמן. יהא שמי רבה מבורך, לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמדי קדושה, בריחו לעילם מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירנה בעלמא ויאמרו אמן. תתקבל צלותיהון ובאותיהון בכל ישראל קדם אבוהון די ושמיא, ויאמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיא, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן.
And once again, please feel free to take a seat. So as we mark this first ever at Plainview Jewish Center Pride Shabbat, I want first of all to thank Stu Hames for bringing this idea forward and really pushing along with Michael Stromberg for us to commit to having this program tonight. At the same time, this is not something that comes out of the blue for us here at Plainview Jewish Center. We have been doing a lot of under-the-radar work on inclusion of LGBTQIA plus people for a number of years now. Just some examples, we had our first same-sex wedding here about 7 years ago. We have had same-sex couples as family members. We created, during some of our remodeling, a non-gendered bathroom. For my part, I've spoken with you more than once about my experience as becoming and then being the parent of a transgender woman. And I've taught several sessions about Judaism and sexuality and Judaism and gender. These are things we've been talking about and doing over the past number of years. But up until now, again, a lot of what we've done has been done internally and not with a lot of fanfare. But tonight I think we're taking the long overdue step of very publicly celebrating our commitment to inclusion and solidarity with Jews who identify as LGBTQIA+. We're very privileged tonight to have with us a speaker who can guide us and inspire us as we embark on this process. They have been a wonderful help to me, and from the minute that we began talking, I was hoping that their schedule would allow them to speak with us tonight, and I got my wish, so I'm very happy about that. I want to tell you a little bit about our speaker, Rachel Silverman. I'm going to read a lot of stuff from her bio. I don't usually do this when I introduce speakers, but the bio is both so interesting and impressive that I just have to share it with you. So the first sentence of Rachel's bio reads as follows. Rachel is a proud, fat, trans-disabled Jew who is passionate about social justice and radical inclusion. Rachel double majored in religious studies and sociology at Bryn Mawr College. While there, they worked for several nonprofits. They were trained in community organizing through the Religious Action Center's Mahon Kaplan Fellowship in Washington, D.C., and that Religious Action Center is the political arm of the Reform Movement, where they interned at the Center for Responsible Lending and advocated for people of color, women, and low-income borrowers. They then served as an advocacy intern and then associate at Keshet, where they mobilized the Jewish community to defend transgender rights in Massachusetts. Rachel also acted as a field organizer for If Not Now, where they supported chapter development. Upon graduating, this is all during college, by the way, which is pretty impressive. Upon graduating, Rachel served in the Avoda Jewish Service Corps in Washington, D.C., working as a community organizer and program assistant at Jews United for Justice. At Jews United for Justice, they worked on local racial and economic justice campaigns and supported leadership development. And there's still more. Rachel has also served on the board of directors and acted as national organizer of Judaism on Our Own Terms, where they supported the creation of radically inclusive campus communities. They most recently were a chapter engagement coordinator for PFLAG National, where they supported PFLAG chapters in the Western region. Rachel has written about their experiences and identities for several publications, and I read a few of those articles in preparation for tonight, and they're well worth reading. Places you can look: Medium, My Jewish Learning, the Jewish Women's Archives, and Hey Alma. Right now, Rachel is the New York Education and Training Manager for Keshet. Keshet, as you may or may not know, is a Jewish organization that works to promote full equality for all LGBTQ Jews and our families in Jewish life. And I should also note that Rachel's partner, Sai, is here with us, and we're very happy to have you here. And they also live in Jersey City, so they made quite a schlep with their perfect Jewish cat, Bobka. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce to you our speaker tonight, Rachel Silverman.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you so much for having me as your guest speaker this evening. It is truly an honor to be here. Thank you so much for the warm welcome, Rabbi. As Rabbi Kahn said, my name is Rachel Silverman. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I work for Keshet as our New York Education and Training Manager. Keshet is a national nonprofit that works for the full equality of all LGBTQ+ Jews and our families in Jewish life. Tonight, I'm going to discuss this week's Torah portion, Baha'alotecha, and what it teaches us about LGBTQ+ inclusion, especially with regards to June being Pride Month. But before I dive into the Torah portion, I want to tell you a little bit about myself and my story. I grew up a couple hours away from here in central New Jersey. Jewish community has always been extremely important to me. Some of my best and earliest memories are lighting the Shabbat candles with my family on Friday nights, or playing in the hallways at my synagogue. But I wasn't allowed to be my true self. Both my family and Hebrew school taught me that being part of the LGBTQ+ community was a sin. For years, I repressed and hid my identities. Until college, when I was blessed to learn from queer and affirming rabbis, professors, and community members. and realized that I am part of the LGBTQ+ community. I came to understand myself as non-binary, meaning that I don't identify as a man or a woman. I also started using singular they/them pronouns for myself, so that the language used to describe myself in the third person is gender neutral. For example, if you were talking about my davar tonight, you could say, Rachel was our speaker from Keshet. They wore a rainbow yarmulke. Their davar was really great. I'm presuming you're saying that my davar is really great. This realization of being non-binary and queer was difficult for me at first because of my upbringing. But my mentors and community members taught me that my queerness and faith could not only be compatible, but integral to one another. I learned biblical Hebrew and began analyzing text through a queer lens and learned about the LGBTQ+ Jewish scholars, rabbis, and thinkers who came before me. I became dedicated to making sure that all Jewish institutions are inclusive of and liberatory for LGBTQ+ people. According to Jewish text and tradition, we are all obligated to take action against oppression and exclusion. I and Keshet believe that advancing LGBTQ+ equality is at the heart of our Jewish values. You may be wondering what happened with my family of origin and whether I have been accepted for who I am. Almost 3 years ago, on Rosh Hashanah, I wrote my father a letter. In this letter, I explained that I'm part of the LGBTQ+ community and taught him what being non-binary and using they/them pronouns means. I also explained how the homophobic and transphobic things he said throughout my life had a great impact on me, and asked him to take accountability for these harmful words and walk the walk in accepting my identities. To my great pleasant surprise, my father responded saying that he loves me unconditionally, that he has realized times have changed and he was wrong in his biases against the LGBTQ+ community. This was an incredible moment for me. I realized that just like it took me time to come to terms with my identities and to unlearn the homophobia and transphobia of my youth, my father had a similar journey to go on in becoming an ally. I bring this grace and compassion in the work that I do each day as I acknowledge each person's potential for learning and growth. My hope is that each one of us can dedicate ourselves to listening to those in the LGBTQ+ community. Even if you do not understand part of someone's identity, the most important thing is to respect it and be open to learning and growing. In learning about this week's Torah portion, I hope that we can all take lessons about inclusivity with us, not just during Pride Month, but every month of the year. So without further ado, let me tell you about Baha Elotecha. This portion continues where we left off with the Israelites traveling in the desert. The Israelites are frustrated and complain to Moses. They complain a lot in this chapter. They are sick of eating manna and demand other sustenance, saying they would have been better off staying in Egypt. Moses becomes overwhelmed with his leadership position and pleads to God, saying that he would rather have God take his life than for him to continue as leader of the Israelites. God tells Moses that he is not alone in his work and instructs him to gather 70 elders to assist him in leadership duties. Moses brings them to the tabernacle, where the elders all receive God's Holy Spirit and are able to prophesy. 2 of the elders, Eldad and Medad, remain in the camp and do not go to the tabernacle, but the Spirit remains with them and they too become prophets. Joshua and another person are horrified at this when they see normal people acting as prophets and complain to Moses that he must restrain them. Moses responds, "Are you jealous on my account? Would that all God's people were prophets and that God put the divine Spirit upon all of them." In Torah Queries, a weekly Torah commentary with an LGBTQ+ lens that I highly suggest you all check out, Steve Guttow notes Moses' response is particularly significant. Steve writes, "In Baha Elotecha, Moses himself insists that everyone should have the opportunity to speak for God. If everyone has the chance to prophesy, then certainly, at least in Baha Elotecha, everyone in the community can lead." Moses' revolutionary words include everyone. He goes beyond the idea of any limitation in number or qualification. He simply says that all of God's people should be granted the most exalted status in Judaism, the status of prophets. Contrary to the normative voice of the tradition, which extols and protects the power of the hierarchy, here Moses reaches out and includes everyone. If Moses wishes that all the Jewish people were prophets, certainly women and LGBTQ+ people are included. I think that Steve's commentary can be expanded even further, that Moses' desire for all people to be granted this divine spirit is reminiscent of a key Jewish principle that the rabbi referenced earlier, B'Tselem Elohim, the belief that we all were made in the divine image of God. This is a simple and profound idea that should guide our interactions with all people. If we see each person as created in the divine image of God, we can see humanity and dignity in all people. In Jewish tradition, we are holy not because of our we are holy because of our uniqueness, not in spite of it. We are a multiplicity of identities: race, socioeconomic status, ability, size, religion, age, and much more. God's infinite creativity is shown through the miracle of creation. It is beautiful how each one of us is so multifaceted, with different identities that make up who we are. We as Jews are called upon to honor and protect each life in all its uniqueness and intricacies. We must commit ourselves to cultivating inclusive Jewish communities where each person can show up as their full self without checking parts of their identity at the door. We also must commit ourselves to dismantling systems that oppress people for being who they are. We are in June, which is Pride Month, where we loudly and proudly celebrate the LGBTQ+ community with parades and marches. There is something powerful about feeling connected to others who have similarities to yourself, especially if that identity is one that has been persecuted and marginalized. We feel this when we stand proudly as Jews. Many LGBTQ+ people feel this at Pride, as we feel the joy of being with people living in their identities loudly. Pride remains a symbol of resistance. It originated with the Stonewall riots in New York, a protest in which trans women of color took the lead in opposing police violence. In marking Pride, we also remember our history and current realities of harassment, violence, and systemic discrimination. I would like to take us back to this week's Torah portion for a minute, to its significant ending. We see Miriam and Aaron commit lashon hara, derogatory language, against Moses by gossiping about his marriage to a Cushite woman. The reason for their gossip is important. Miriam and Aaron's judgment comes from a fear of people who are different than themselves. Miriam then experiences being an outsider herself. As a punishment for her words, God curses her with leprosy, and she is shut out of the camp for 7 days. This teaches us that we are responsible for our actions. What we say and do has a huge impact on others. Language is extremely powerful. Comments we may say about the LGBTQ+ community, or not using someone's chosen name or pronouns, can have a big negative impact on individuals. For example, by taking a look at me and hearing my voice, you may assume that I am a woman and use she, her pronouns, though that is not the case. And these assumptions take a real toll on LGBTQ+ people. Each time someone uses the incorrect pronouns for me, I feel like another rock is being added to my backpack until eventually I will tip over. You can take up gender-inclusive practices such as sharing the pronouns you want people to use to refer to you. Sharing pronouns is a simple practice that allows others to refer to you correctly, challenges the assumption that we can or should guess people's pronouns, lets trans and non-binary people know that you are a safe person, and can take the burden off of those whose pronouns are regularly disrespected, so that they are not the first or only ones sharing. We also recommend using gender-neutral language when addressing groups of people, such as saying honored guests or students, instead of ladies and gentlemen or boys and girls. There are many people like myself who don't identify as a man or a woman, and shifting to gender-inclusive language respects and acknowledges the gender identities of all people and removes assumptions. You also have the power to be an ally in day-to-day situations by intervening whenever you see LGBTQ+ bias or discrimination. The perpetrator may not have even intended to cause harm. We all have unconscious bias and may find ourselves unintentionally making a comment that has a real negative impact on an LGBTQ+ person. We were raised in a world where it is the norm to be straight and to be cisgender, meaning that your gender identity is the same as your assigned sex at birth. And many of our systems were built upon the assumption that all people are straight and cisgender, and benefit straight and cisgender people at the expense of others. We know that being an ally to the LGBTQ+ community makes a huge difference. Content warning for suicide. According to the Trevor Project, an LGBTQ+ suicide prevention organization, LGBTQ+ youth who have at least one accepting adult in their lives are 40% less likely to report a suicide attempt. They also found that transgender and non-binary youth who report having their pronouns respected by most or all people in their lives attempt suicide at half the rate of those who do not have their pronouns respected. We all in this room have the opportunity to be that life-saving person in an LGBTQ+ child's life. LGBTQ+ youth need our help. The US currently has hundreds of anti-LGBTQ+ bills being sponsored across the country, and about 100 have already been introduced in state legislators. The majority of them surround youth. For instance, you may have heard how Florida has erased queer people from schools with the so-called Don't Say Gay bill. This legislation bans discussion of sexual orientation and gender identity from kindergarten to 3rd grade. I know the damage that this can do because I was the young queer kid who needed to feel represented, seen, and loved for who I was. I had no LGBTQ+ role models in my life. Never learned about LGBTQ+ history, or even that I could be anything but straight and cisgender. Whenever queer people were mentioned, which was rarely, it was derogatory. As I started to question my gender identity and sexual orientation, I felt terrified. Instead of feeling love, support, and belonging, I felt shame and exclusion. We need to fight censorship of LGBTQ+ representation and education so that all kinds of families and ways of identifying are seen and respected. And so LGBTQ+ children have the freedom to develop the words for how God created them. Florida's Don't Say Gay bill was only the beginning. Anti-LGBTQ+ organizations have created copycat bills that are now cropping up all over the country. And in Texas, their governor recently directed the state's Department of Family and Protective Services to open child abuse investigations of parents who provide gender-affirming care for their transgender children. Parents may have their children taken away just for providing them life-saving care. Let me be clear, gender-affirming care is not abuse. It is a supportive, non-judgmental model of care, and it allows patients to explore, and if they decide later in life, to pursue medical affirmation procedures. It is recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American Medical Association. Now, some of you may be thinking, we live on Long Island. Surely the LGBTQ+ community are safe and affirmed here. While it is true that we live in a more progressive state where LGBTQ+ people have legal protections, I want to stress that LGBTQ+ people still experience disparities here. The UJA Federation of New York released a study last year examining the social, economic, and emotional impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the New York Jewish community. The study surveyed Jewish adults in New York City, Nassau, Suffolk, and Westchester. Its results about the LGBTQ+ community were horrifying, but not surprising to those of us who live with these realities every day. They found LGBTQ+ adults in Jewish households have an unemployment rate of 20%, almost twice the rate for cisgender straight adults. LGBTQ+ adults also report higher levels of food insecurities and layoffs during the pandemic. LGBTQ+ adults report more symptoms of depression and anxiety, a high 48%, when compared to cisgender straight adults, 18%. LGBTQ+ adults also report higher rates of substance abuse and domestic violence than cisgender straight adults. Even after controlling for factors such as race, age, location, industry, health, disability, and education, LGBTQ+ adults in Jewish households in the New York City area are still more likely to experience higher rates of economic hardship and symptoms of depression and anxiety. To be clear, these disparities are not the result of people having LGBTQ+ identities, but are the result of transphobia, homophobia, and other biases that lead to harm. So what do we do to combat these disparities, to honor the holiness in each person? We take action. If you are LGBTQ+, know that you are not alone. You are part of a fierce, resilient community that has already moved mountains and will continue to do so. And if you are not LGBTQ+, we invite you to be part of this work as allies. Allyship is the process of being in relationship with people who hold an oppressed identity that you do not share, and using your own platform, privilege, or power to work with them to increase safety, dignity, and belonging for members of that group. Allyship is action-oriented, accountable, and ongoing, and may look different from situation to situation. Being an ally doesn't mean you'll get everything right. It means that you will listen, learn, and grow when you do not. I want to close by stressing that it's okay to be new to this, and maybe to even feel overwhelmed. Even Moses is overwhelmed in this week's Parsha, saying to God, "I cannot carry all these people by myself, for it is too much for me." In response, God gives him some divine wisdom on leadership, letting Moses know that he is not alone, setting up a communal system to spread the labor. God says, "They shall share the burden of the people with you, and you shall not bear it alone." Just like leading the Israelites, inclusion work is hard, but we are not alone. It is our communal responsibility to be allies to the LGBTQ+ community. As Pirkei Avot says, "You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it." My ask of you is to dedicate yourself to learning more. Keshet's website has a plethora of resources about the LGBTQ+ community, including terminology, readings on queer and Jewish intersections, and guides on how to make your spaces inclusive to LGBTQ+ people. You can also join Keshet's mailing list to stay in the loop about LGBTQ+ current events and programming, and learn about ways to take action on anti-LGBTQ+ legislation. Our community mobilization team hosts phone banks where you can be an advocate in states where queerphobic bills are pending but not passed, even if you don't live in those states. You can also spread the word to friends and family members in those states and beyond to amplify any actions we're taking to combat legislative homophobia and transphobia. So not only this Shabbat, not only this Pride Month, but every day of the year, let us dedicate ourselves to building communities where LGBTQ+ people can show up as their full selves and are seen and valued for their holiness, so they can experience true belonging and can thrive. Shabbat Shalom. So I'll be here for the Oneg, so if you have questions about LGBTQ+ inclusion or about Keshet, you can find me then, but I also am here now if anyone has any questions that you want to ask here. Without any fear of judgment, there's no wrong questions. Yeah?
Because we're on live stream also, I'm going to bring the mic down if it's okay with you, Jonathan.
I was reading that the government recently, I think this week, passed a whole bunch of legislation in pro-LGBTQ community. Can you talk about that a little bit, please?
Yeah, I don't know a huge amount about it, but I know that President Biden signed or is planning to sign today, or maybe did yesterday, an executive order that I believe is affirming that federal agencies can't discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. But my understanding is that that will not be able to affect the states that unfortunately are having anti-LGBTQ+ legislation. Yeah, great question. Yes, someone over there? Yeah.
Hi, I'm sorry if I missed this in your bio, but I found it very enjoyable to hear you give Dvar Torah from your own special perspective in a somewhat rabbinical way, and I enjoyed hearing that. And if I missed it in your bio, could you please tell us or remind me what it is in your background in education that enables you to speak in such detail on any particular parsha like you did this week?
That's so kind, thank you. I do plan on going to rabbinic school in a few years. Yay. Okay, there's applause, cool. Either at Hebrew College in Boston, which is non-affiliated with any movement, or the Reconstructionist Rabbinical School in Philadelphia are the two schools I'm looking at. I did study religion in college with a focus in ethics in society. So I was looking at social issues such as race, class, gender, and sexual orientation, and took classes on all faiths, but mostly the Jewish classes, to be honest, because that's what I was most interested in, where I studied biblical Hebrew and learned to be able to have that lens to be able to do text study through an LGBTQ+ lens. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Please feel free to seek out Raquel during our Oneg Shabbat, which will follow in just a minute, and I'm sure that they will be very happy to share more knowledge and inspiration with anybody who seeks them out.
Thank you for having me.
Again, Rachel, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your knowledge with us, also sharing your inspiration with us as well. And certainly you've given us some very important goals to strive to continue to reach in the future, and we'll look forward to your continued help and collaboration in getting there. Let's go back now to the end part of our service. If you are able to, please rise. 51 for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל ההמונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Mourners, those observing a yard set, anyone who would like to say Kaddish with us for any reason, if you're able to, please remain standing, and you can join me for Mourners Kaddish, page 52. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah be'alma divra chirutei ve'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon u'v'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael Bagala uvizman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam ulome omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpoar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudasha brechu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'olma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. This is normally the part of our service where I introduce our president, Bruce Heimowitz, for this evening's announcements. Bruce, do you want to share anything with us? Okay.
I just want to say thank you very much for Raquel for being here, and Stu also for setting this up, Michael Schumberg and the rest of the team. So kudos to you guys, and very nice program. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Look forward to hearing from you more tomorrow. I'd like to also call on the aforementioned Stu Hames, who has a few words he'd like to share with us.
Good Shabbos, everyone. I will be brief. First of all, I'm coming here for almost 30 years. Are these not the most amazing floral arrangements we've ever had here? I was admiring them the whole time. Like, these are amazing. They're definitely not from my garden, I can tell you that. So, huh? Oh, the balloons I can't claim. The rabbi's responsible for the balloons. Thank you. So I had hoped to deliver these very, very short remarks in front of a much larger audience, but we did what we can, and we appreciate every single one of you who came out this evening. Don't run away when we're done here, because we have a beautiful Oneg Shabbat set up by our Kiddush committee for your enjoyment immediately following services. So I did prepare something in writing here, so I don't have to speak off the cuff, although I sometimes do, and I don't want to miss anything. So it's unfortunate that we need to include or to have inclusion. And by that I mean, it's unfortunate that we have to differentiate. That why is there a societal stigma and a distinction among different groups of people, whether it be race, religion, nationality, sexual preferences, or whatever might distinguish you from people who are not like you. So why do we have to have that distinction? I look forward to a day when we don't have to think about it. I kind of coined the corny phrase when I was preparing these remarks. I'm like, everyone is everyone, and everyone should be everyone, and there shouldn't be a distinction. Everyone should be the default. So there really should be, at some point, hopefully, no distinction, no delineation among groups of people. Everyone is everyone. So I want to thank Rabbi Khan and Cantor Merrick. This is not our typical Friday night service, although I found it extremely enjoyable, regardless of the fact whether it's a Pride Shabbat or not. If I knew Friday night service like this, I would come more often. And maybe we are onto something. Yes. Okay? So I also want to thank my good friends Steve and Linda Edelman for providing transportation tonight to Rachel and their partner. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name, but Sai. Okay, without whom they would have been stranded at the Hicksville train station. Don't worry, we'll get you back there in due time. Oh, okay. You're off the hook, Steve. So that was a big help, and thank you very much. And I wanted to say that, I don't know if it was made clear earlier, they live in central New Jersey, and they've been on the road since 4 o'clock in the afternoon to get here in time for this, so we really do appreciate that. I mentioned about the ONEG. So again, the rest of my comments are meant for a much larger audience, so I'm going to wrap it up with this. I do appreciate everybody coming tonight. It was a pleasure to see everyone. I want to call up a good buddy of mine. So before I do that, I am on the regional executive board of the New York Metropolitan Region of the Federation of Jewish Men's Clubs. There's actually 3 vice presidents here tonight. Shay Lerner is our first vice president. I'm the second vice president, and Jonathan Brody is our third vice president. And we're going to have to refer back to this distinction of inclusion for a moment. This inclusion initiative is brought to us by the Federation of Jewish Men's Clubs on an international level. And we, on a regional level, are bringing this out throughout the New York metropolitan area. In doing so, we garnered some attention from some local authorities, and Jonathan has been in contact with, he'll explain whom. But we have a proclamation that was given to the Federation of Jewish Men's Clubs for its efforts in initiating this inclusion program. Again, a term I hope that we won't have to use much longer. So again, for just a moment, before we go into ONEG, Jonathan Brody from Midway Jewish Center in Syosset.
So, Raquel, you know, your words really touched me. I was really, I thank you for sharing your words. They were really, you shared about yourself and everything. So I am third vice president of the Federation of Jewish Men's Clubs, and when I knew that there was an inclusion thing coming down from the international, I said, well, let's do something with LGBTQ plus in honor of Pride Month. So I took it upon myself to get local legislation and a whole bunch of groups like the ADL and the AJC and the Women's League and and so many others and synagogues to endorse our support of the New York Metro region in support of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, LGBTQ, Jews of color, Queer Pride Month. And we have a citation that was given to us at the last meeting by Joshua Lufesen, who is a local legislator. And we're going to take this and really try to get more support to show that we really do support the community, and we want to be allies and open and educate. Honestly, it was very new to me about terminology, and just by speaking they, he, she, and if you offend someone, it wouldn't be malice, it would just be uneducated. So I really do appreciate you speaking and educating this group and myself. And we just wanted to say that we at the Federation of Jewish Men's Club in the Metro New York region, we do support. We have a citation / proclamation. I'm really proud to be part of this, and we want to grow to support and be allies and make more education. And yeah, we're all one people. We're all created in God's image, and we just wanted to say how much we are really looking forward to growing, working with Keshet and other organizations to support and be there and work together. So that's that.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm going to turn the services back over to Rabbi Kahn and Cantor Merrick to close us out. Before I do that, so again, this might have come out from the FJMC and another temple in Queens that did a program like this, but it doesn't happen by itself. I brought the idea to Rabbi Kahn. We had a little meeting online with the other shul that did this. We formed a committee of Rabbi Kahn, myself, and my good friend Michael Stromberg, without whom a lot of this would not have happened. So I just want to thank Rabbi Kahn, Michael Stromberg, and all of you for coming down tonight and helping us put this together. Without further ado, I will relinquish the microphone back to Rabbi Kahn.
Once again, thank you, Stu. Stu was a huge part of making this happen tonight, and couldn't have done it without you. A couple things, just please hang with us for just a couple seconds. Before our service, I learned a couple of things. I learned that a member of Sai's family is undergoing a very significant surgery this evening. A member of our own congregational family is also possibly undergoing a significant surgery this evening. So it seems like a good time for our Misha Beirach prayer. So I'll ask you, even though we don't have the white Shabbat pamphlets in front of us to follow along with the words, if you would like to, please sing along with Cantor Merrick, Debbie Friedman's version of the Misha Beirach prayer. And if you have somebody you'd like to include in the prayer as well, feel free to, if you're able to, rise at your seats.
מי שברך אבותינו מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. מי שברך אמותינו מקור הברכה לאבותינו. Bless those in need of healing with רפואה שלמה, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Please be seated for just another minute. We are going to be adjourning to the ballroom for Kiddush and Motzi, and of course Oneg Shabbat. Please gather around the Kiddush table for us. We can make Kiddush and Motzi. Before we do that, though, I asked Cantor Merrick if she could come up with an appropriate closing song for our service. And she found a song entitled B'Tselem Elohim. B'Tselem Elohim means in the image of God. And tonight is really an affirmation, of course, that we are all created in the image of God, each of us in our unique way, manifesting God's holiness. So I'd like to invite Cantor Merrick to conclude our service with that song, B'Tselem Elohim, and then please join us in the ballroom.
Yeah, 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 We've all got our life to live. We've all got a gift to give. Just open your heart and let it out. We've all got a piece to bring. We've all got a song to sing. Just open your heart and let it out. When I reach out to you and you to me, we become B'Tselem Elohim. When we share our hopes and our dreams, each one of us B'Tselem Elohim. We've all got a tale to tell. We'll all wanna speak it well. Just open your heart and let it out. We've all got a mountain to climb. We've all got a truth to find. Just open your heart and let it out. When I reach out to you and you to me, we become B'Tselem Elohim. When we share our hopes and our dreams, each one of us B'Tselem Elohim. When we share our hopes and our dreams, each one of us B'Tselem Elohim.
So.
And this is Vinny Lucasano on the piano.
So thank you so much for being here and providing us with such beautiful music tonight. And to everyone once again, Shabbat Shalom. Please join us in the ballroom.
Great, Vinny. Wonderful. Because the material is similar. You know, it's similar stuff and similar feel of all the same words. Music is a little different. So, good.
just gonna,
Okay.
I'll prop that door open,
Yeah,
and that's okay, right?
that's okay. Just when you leave, close it. I'm going just to greet some people.
Oh, yeah, I get it. You gotta,
And yes,
you gotta schmooze.
exactly, it's part of the job. But anyway, put a check for you.
Okay.
You know, put a check. 350, so you should get it this way.
Thank you.
You should get it this way.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, give it about.
And like I said, easy peasy, nice and
Yeah.
fun.
Nice and fun. I know, it's good. And I feel comfortable because
We've been working together
Exactly.
I mean, I see you every week.
exactly. So
Just
you-
about, right?
Exactly. So I'm comfortable with you. You know, I know you kind of read my, you know, my style, you know, my keys, my voice, the way my voice sounds. So it's nice and
Yeah, I
easy.
mean, like,
Nice and easy.
you know, everybody does the prayers a little differently, I think. Just the way, like, you know, like the Hatzi Kaddish, you have a different cadence, you have your own way of doing it a little bit.
Right.
So it's like, this just takes a little while to get used to. I thought we were pretty together still.
Yeah. It was great. I was very happy. All right, so
I'm
maybe
glad it
we'll
worked
keep
out.
it.
And
What?
let me know.
Yes.
I'm gonna start on the,
Okay.
good
very
luck
good.
over there.
Very good. Thank you, Benny. It was great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I'll see you this weekend. On Sunday. Okay.
pesado, un blanco. Esa es la...
Parece usted primero.
Ok.
Lleva los ojos, le mire, es una línea. Váyase, váyase, váyase. Foro said he wants these to go home. With pay or without pay?